Hey guys, what's going on? It's Laura and welcome to my channel. Today I am making a video for you and just talking about why I am no longer a 911 dispatcher. I know many people have asked me this question and I think that I've answered it in the comments below, and maybe in one of my videos I mentioned some things about it, but if you're interested in why I am no longer a dispatcher, then stay tuned. Okay guys, so as you know, I was a 911 dispatcher for a little over 18 months, just about a year and a half. And I really enjoyed the time that I was there. Like I said, you know, during this whole process, it definitely is a process. It took me 2 months to get hired. It took me 6 weeks in classroom training. Then I did on-the-job training, and that took, I don't know exactly how many days, but it was like 140 hours. So I had a lot of time invested in being a 911 dispatcher, and I loved every minute of it. But the reasons that I left are, it's actually a few different reasons, kind of all compiled into one. Not really into one, but all kind of, you know, combined together. It's like, when you put a tea kettle or a teapot on the stove, and when the water is ready, it starts to screech and scream and it's ready to pour out. Like, I got to that point where I was ready to screech and scream. So let me tell you about it. It all started really with my evaluation. That's exactly where it started. Up until then, I wasn't interested in working anywhere else. Like I said, I really loved being a 911 dispatcher. I became a dispatcher so that I could, talk to people while they were in the middle of their crisis, because I was studying psychology in school, and I felt that that would be the best way for me to really learn and speak to people who are in crisis, is to talk to them while it's happening. So that's initially why I even decided to apply for jobs in the 911 field. Never ever wanted to be a dispatcher. Never even thought about that job, but once I applied for it and I actually started doing it, I found it to be the most rewarding job that I've ever had in my whole life. So 33, been working since I was 14, so you do the math. So anyway, it all started with my evaluation. We have evaluations once a year. I started working there, and a year after that I had my evaluation. Everything was really good in my evaluation except one thing, and that was with the training department. And when you're a dispatcher, you have to train to do everything. You train to do on-the-job training, so that's your classroom training. That's where you're learning the laws, or not the laws, but the rules as far as it goes being a 911 dispatcher. That's where you'll study for your T-Code examination. T-Code is the Texas Commission of Law Enforcement. You have to be certified with them as a telecommunicator in order to do the job. So everything that you do as far as learning goes through the training department. And so I was training on NCIC, and which is a dispatching channel. I'll put it down below. I can't even remember what it is anymore. But I think it's the National Criminal Information Center. It's like a big database of backgrounds, background investigations. And so I had one trainer. My trainer had to go back and do her job. I think I was at like 90 hours. You have to have 140 to be released to do the job on your own. So she had to go back and do her job. And so they substituted her for another trainer who, at the time, I didn't know that she, had like issues, like personal issues with me. She never communicated those. And so as I was training with her, it just was becoming increasingly difficult. Without going into too many details, it just was becoming really hard, and I could sense that something wasn't quite right. And so I went to to the training department at my agency, and I let them know, hey guys, like, I am really trying my best and I want to be successful in my job, but I don't feel that it is working with this person. And so if there's any opportunity for me to be somewhere else with someone else, then I would gladly take it. And they were like, you know, basically just suck it up and deal with it kind of thing. So that's what I did. I sucked it up and I dealt with it. But it was becoming a lot for me. And so I applied for a new job, and I applied for one job, guys, and I applied for that one job at work that day, one day, not that particular day. So anyway, I was going through this whole interview process with this other job that I had applied for. Meanwhile, all of these things are going on with my trainer and I. And eventually it's time for my evaluation. And so, you know, with evaluations, everybody gets together and kind of talks about you, the good, bad, and indifferent. And so my evaluation was really good. It talked about how I had, you know, good numbers. I answered the phones quickly. My calls, I got good scores on my calls because your calls are graded. And I worked well with my other coworkers. The only negative thing in that was with the training department. And it basically said that I was rude and disrespectful to my trainer, which I had an absolute problem with because she was like the third trainer that I had in that entire time that I had been working there. And none of my other trainers ever had anything like that to say about me except her. And it really didn't make sense, and I couldn't even understand it when it was happening because we never had words. I don't know. I'm one of those people, if you got a problem with me, I don't know you have a problem with me unless you address me, unless you say something to me about it. I definitely pick up on behaviors, and I definitely pick up on when something just doesn't quite seem right with another person, but I never automatically assume. I never just say, hey, you don't like me or what's going on. If you have the problem with me, I let you come to me with the problem. And if I have a problem with you, then I'm going to come to you with that. And so seeing how she didn't come to me with anything, I didn't think there was a problem initially, but I could feel it. And I felt that every day she came and sat with me and trained me that she didn't want to do it. And that made me uncomfortable because as I thought, like when I answered 911 calls when I was on the radio channel, she didn't have to listen to my calls. She would usually take her headset out. But when I had to do radio traffic with the officers or, you know, run names, license plates, all that good stuff, you know, she had to check everything I did. And I felt like everything I did, for the most part, was accurate. Now, I know there are times that I absolutely did mess up. Everybody, I think, everybody messes up. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in times like that, then that's when there's time for teaching and time for correcting. But instead, she just was like, you didn't do this right, or, you know, but not in that tone. It was just like, ugh, or slam it down on the, you know, shit like that I don't have time for, like at work, because they don't pay me to deal with like the extra stuff. So one day, one day she said, like, it's called a DOR, like your daily observation report. And so in my last daily observation report with her, she put that I wasn't responding to training. And I was like, what? That's weird, because every week you go and meet with the training officers, your training leaders, your training officer, whatever we're gonna call those. You have your person who's training you, and then you have the training department, and y'all all meet together. I do a one-on-one with the training department, and then my trainer does a one-on-one with the training department, and then the two of us get together with the training department. Now, we had done that morning, or earlier that day. Yeah, it was that morning. We done that earlier that morning. It was nothing negative that happened in that meeting. Nothing was said. They asked, do you have anything that you want to say to Laura as it relates to her job? What, blah, blah, blah. She said no. Then that night, when I got off, she said that I wasn't responding to training. And I said, I don't understand. I don't understand how I'm not responding to training when you didn't say anything about it earlier. Like, if I wasn't responding to training, then I shouldn't have been responding to it earlier that day. You know, like, this didn't just happen over this 8-hour time period. Like, this is strange. What's going on? And she's like, well, I just don't think you're responding. And I asked her, I said, so when did this occur? And she started getting like red and like beside herself a little bit. And then I said, because the shift was changing, and I needed to, well, there were people coming in and out, so other people could hear us talking. So I said, why don't we go somewhere else and talk about this? And then the supervisor for the next shift, he says, oh, I agree. Why don't we go and talk about this somewhere else? So then he comes in to this whole conversation that had nothing to do with him. He comes in, you know, and it just was like nothing was resolved. So I ended up like the next day getting a new trainer, which they could have did that at the beginning. I got a new trainer, and you know, everything was going quite well. But then I had got the new job, and so I decided, do I want to take this new position that I'm working Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, I don't have to work on the weekends or holidays, or do I want to stay here and look at what's her face? And then I chose the other job. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole story of why I'm no longer a dispatcher. But then after I left, like, this is where it gets a little tricky, because after I left, I found out that while I was there with the trainer who was not allowing me to be successful, she was writing notes to one of our colleagues, negative things about me, about how she didn't want to train me, and da 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 da. I didn't know that when I worked there. Had I known that, I would have had a much better understanding as to why I wasn't doing as good as I normally do. So I don't know, I could have taken that further, but I didn't. I just didn't want anything else to do with it. Would I ever be a 911 dispatcher again? Yeah, absolutely. I was actually laid off from my job, the one that I left 911 for, and I was applying to be a dispatcher again, and actually got a couple of offers, but I ended up taking a position with another nonprofit, just because that is my passion. It's what I love to do. I loved dispatching, but this is what I'm passionate about doing. So there's a major difference. So that's why I left 911. That's why I'm not a dispatcher. If I could volunteer to do it or go do it on the weekends or, you know, part-time, I definitely would. Not in the agency, not at the agency that I worked at previously, because I know that I would have to deal with this woman again, and I just don't have time for that. I don't like that type of stuff at work. I really like to go to work and just like have peace if I can. For the most part, I don't do drama like well at all in life. So but I definitely would be a dispatcher again. That's why I was applying to different positions, got hired on at 2 places, but had to turn them down. So that's the video why I'm no longer a dispatcher. Drama. Because when you work in a high stress environment, people don't have anything to do sometimes but to create drama. And Laura ain't got time for it at all. Alright guys, also be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. And also, if you haven't, go ahead and click the notification bell so that you can be notified whenever I post a video. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.